So today we're gonna be talking only about animation, and I know that's gonna be a little bit repetitive if you took my animation one class, but I'm gonna have to go through some basics because some of the students in the class didn't take the class with me. But I promise that's gonna be very quick and that's gonna be a good refresher for you guys. So the first thing we're gonna talk about before we jump to Maya and we start animating our character is about the 12 rules of animation. What are the 12 rules of animation? Those are rules that were created by Disney animators and Walt Disney Studio in the 1930s, mostly in the 30s. They developed those rules through observation and trial and error. At that time, there wasn't that many universities or schools to teach more commercial types of art, and Walt Disney wanted to push the level of animation to something much more sophisticated than the competition. So he pretty much created his own university inside of Walt Disney. He brought a bunch of different professors of traditional art, and among those classes of sculpting, painting, etc., they did something very interesting. They brought a bunch of actors and they started recording actors or some elements of nature, like to see like how humans would actually move or how a piece of fabric would move in the wind, and they would record that on film and then they would play very slowly in slow motion to get a idea of how they could translate this to animation. This system of observation had the apex during the production of Snow White, where they got real actors to be stand-ins for the characters in the movie. You had an actress for Snow White, you have a bunch of other guys for the dwarfs, and through that observation they created those 12 rules of animation, which are pretty much universal to this day in animation, not just 2D animation, but also 3D animation, and even more distant traditions of animation like Japanese animation. In the 3D animation, that came pretty much because of Pixar. Pixar was founded by one of the Disney animators, John Lasseter. He used to work at Disney as animator. He was one of the founders of Pixar, so he brought the same type of technique. Those rules were not really written down in a paper like proper rules until 1981, when this book here was published, and that was the first time those rules were actually codified in like and numbered, but they have been used since the 30s, even though we didn't have like proper names or numbers for each one of them. But since 1981, everyone uses the term 12 rules of animation. So why you need that? Well, you need to at least know the rules, even if you want to break the rules later. I'm not gonna spend much more time in this, but before we jump to Maya, I want to show a little video. It's a very short with pretty much a summary of those 12 rules and how you can apply that in animation.
The following has been paraphrased from The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Squash and stretch. This action gives the illusion of weight and volume to a character as it moves. Anticipation. Prepares the audience for a major action the character is about to perform. Each major action is preceded with specific moves that anticipate for the audience what is about to happen. Staging. It's the presentation of an idea so that it is clear. Straight ahead and pose to pose. Pose to pose is charted with key drawings done at intervals throughout the scene. Straight ahead animation starts at the first drawing and works drawing to drawing to the end of a scene. Follow through and overlapping. When the main body of the character stops, all other parts continue to catch up to the main mass. Nothing stops all at once. Slow in and slow out. As the action starts, we have more drawings near the starting pose, one or two in the middle, and more drawings near the next pose. Fewer drawings make the action faster, and more drawings make the action slower. Arcs. All actions, with few exceptions, follow an arc or slightly circular path. Arcs give animation a more natural action and better flow. Secondary action. It's an additional action in the scene used as a supplement of the main one in order to reinforce it and add more dimension. Timing. More drawings between poses slow and smooth the action. Fewer drawings make the action faster and crisper. Timing maintains the appearance of an object abiding by the laws of physics. Exaggeration. Remain true to reality, just presenting it in a wild or more extreme form. Solid drawings. It means taking into account forms in three-dimensional space, giving them volume and weight. Appeal. It's a quality of charm, able to please the viewer's eyes. It's the charisma of the action.
So, pretty short, but very effective. Do you need to remember all of those rules? Not really, but it's good to kind of keep them in mind, and after a while you will remember all of them. And as you start animating characters, they will become very natural. Like, it will make sense for you to do anticipation. It will make sense for you to use arcs. It will make sense for you to have the timing. So because those rules are not created out of nothing, they were a result of observation and practice. They are very natural and they are very good to know. So keep that in mind, and let's jump to Maya. So we're here in Maya, and let's go direct to the front view. Let's create a sphere here. Make sure you're in the animation menu there. And let's create animation with this little ball. Okay, how can you create an animation in Maya? The simplest way, you go here in frame 1, you press S, and you're gonna get a little red line. That means you have a keyframe. You could just go here in animation and click this guy here, which is the same of pressing S. And then you go to another frame and you can just move to a different position, press S, and then you have animation. Boom. So let's understand what is happening here in the timeline. This bunch of numbers here, they represent each frame of your animation. So right now we have 1 to 120. This number here represents the current keyframe, the one where you have the cursor in the timeline. This number here represents the first frame of the animation. This other extreme represents the last frame of the animation, so the total number of the animation. So if you want to make the animation bigger or smaller, you're going to change this number here. And those two here are how much you are seeing of the whole animation. In this case, they are the same of the beginning and the end, but you can change either changing the number here or just click and drag this, so you could see just like from 1 to 64, or starting 18 to 64, and so on and so forth. Then we have character set. We're not going to be talking about this. We have animation layers. We're going to be talking this class, but later on. Here you can select how many frames per second you're going to have. The default in Maya is 24 frames per second because Maya was originally made for films. We have this button here to see if you want to have a loop or not. There's another button here, is a cached playback, just a way that Maya puts complex animation on the RAM memory, so the playback's a little bit faster. This is sound stuff, is new in this version of Maya. This button here is for some extra settings. And here you have the time controls like playback, next frame, next keyframe, and beginning of the animation. So it's not that complicated. I think it's kind of easy to understand what is happening here. So let's create a more complex animation here. Let's go to frame 24, so like 1 second, and I'm gonna create a, no, that was too much. I'm gonna move here, move this a little bit like here, and then I'm gonna create a keyframe. Then I'm gonna go to 48, move a little bit, create another keyframe. Then 72, another keyframe. Then 96 and another keyframe. So now let's go to the middle of each of those keyframes, and we're gonna make like start with a big jump and then a smaller jumps. Actually, this one I just want like to roll like this. So let's see what we have here. So we have a little ball animation, but it doesn't really look like a ball kicking, right? So we have to fix that. So first there's a lot of ways you can change the trajectory of the animation that you created or anything here. One of the easiest ways is to click here so you can create a motion trail. So if you play here, you will have a graphic representation of the motion you have. And the interesting thing here is you can actually select this and you can just move around, and you're gonna have a totally different animation than what you had before without having to do new keyframes. You just change what you had before. But again, not what we wanted to do. So I'm gonna make this smaller and this like this. And another thing you can do is turn on or off the ghosting. If you click here, the ghost, you have to select the object, you click ghosting, and then you'll get like a preview of where the animation is going and where the animation has been. Very useful too. So especially when you're doing like character animation, you want to kind of make some changes, and it's good to have like a reference of what is happening before and after. So you can turn off here. But when you need to change like the trajectory with more like in more detail to have better like fine tuning possibilities, you have to go here in the Windows, Animation Editor, Graph Editor. So the Graph Editor is a representation of the animation changes of any attribute in your object. In this case, the only change we did is in Translate. So if you click here in some of attributes of my sphere, you're gonna see, like, for example, visibility or rotate or scale, you get that flat line. You have like the little diamonds representing the keyframes, but everything is flat because there's no change, because I didn't made any change in that aspect. So you are still here in 0. So it's going to be a flat line. But then we go to X, to Y, to X, and then to Y here. The X is left to right. So we're going to have this kind of linear progression getting like bigger and bigger, because that's what happened, like from here to here. The y-axis is different. It is actually very similar to the motion trail, even though that's not, is more of a coincidence than anything, because the motion trail is representing only the y-axis. In this case specifically, that's not going to be the case for most animations, but in this case it's very similar. And then the Z again is a linear, because I didn't have anything differently. The main things you can do here, you can select the keys and you can move them around. You can change like how much like the interpolation happens here, and that's the interpolation is how Maya is gonna interpret the keyframes and how he's gonna create the interpolation, the in-between frames between the keyframes. So let's select all those here and let's change the interpolation. We have a bunch of modes here. Auto tangent, that's what we got here. We have spline tangent, we have clamped tangent, we have linear. Let's show linear, gonna be easy to understand. So if I have linear, the progression is gonna be, well, very linear. So let's see here and click play. So it's not very natural, but the kick here, the part that the ball actually kicks in the ground, is actually a little bit better than what we had before. If you select everything here and we click this, like for example, this here, you step, you basically have a linear, like no change, and boom, then jumps to the other keyframe. No change, bam, just jumps to the other keyframe. The result is going to be something like this. It seems like the ball just teleports to the other part and continues. And actually I'm going to delete the motion trail because we want to just see like the animation here. So why would you use this? Well, this would be more when you're blocking the animation and you want to see only the keyframes, so that's useful. But not for what we want to do here. What we want to do is to make the trajectory very round, but when it hits the ground should be like sharp corners. So we're going to select all of that, and we can use either the auto tangent or we can try the spline. I'm gonna go with spline, and then we can get this guy here and can select this, make linear, or I could, instead of linear, I could just move like the tangent of the point like this. You could get here and make this like a corner, but easier if you just click here, linear. And so let's see how that looks now. Looks a little better, a little more like a ball. But I still want to make some changes. I want to get this Okay, now we have to apply some other rules of animation. Right now we have the staging, we have the timing. We need to create some anticipation and some stretch, squash and stretch. So we're gonna start here. We're gonna not jump in the first one. We are actually gonna move those two frames a little bit here. So let's see what we got here. Doop, 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 doop. Very cartoony ball animation. Doop, 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 doop. So that's just a little example of what you can do, like with a little ball, using Maya to apply to create a little animation very quickly. So having that in mind, let's jump to our character and start creating some animations.